that's my goal.
So I decided to press record because I liked what you were saying a lot. And a lot of times when we have these fluid conversations, it just lends itself to the direction we need to go. So I hope that is
That's
okay.
fine. Yep, that's perfect.
I love what you were saying about how you were helping to support. So how did you initially get into that role, though, as you're thinking about helping these schools that were failing? What was that process like?
You know, it's kind of interesting that you asked that, because I don't know if it just fell into my lap or if it was because as a classroom teacher, my first year, I really was horrible. Like, they should have fired me, right? And I was able to then step up, I always say, put on the big girl panties and figure it out. Nobody was coming to save me. I had to do it. I had to figure it out. So then as I was selected to come out of the classroom and start moving up in different positions, it was always, we need you to go fix this. We need you to go help with this. And so that kind of became my reputation. So then I became an assistant principal, and it was the same thing. The school that I went to with the principal, I was chosen because he needed to make some changes at the school, and what my skill set brought, it just made sense. Well, then I was called back to my previous district to fix a grant program that had gone wrong. So I just kind of became the fixer, I guess. But I loved it because it was a lot of that problem solving, and then putting, plans into motion and being able to build people's skills and really think about your staff and, why are things happening? That just lights me up. I'm such a nerd. I know I am, but it's just one of those things. And so then when I got that principalship, and I don't know if it was because people thought, maybe she won't make it, so we'll just give her the hardest school, because I truly took on the most difficult school in that district. But and I didn't match the profile, right? I was young. I was white, coming in from a small town, and the campus was very diverse, very low socioeconomic status. And I don't know if people thought, well, we'll give her this school, then, she'll have enough of that and then she'll move on. But what happened was we made that change and we made that success. And so then it was like, oh, she does know what she's doing. And then success always breeds success, I think.
Right.
And so then it just kept, the staff felt good about the work they were doing. And so the rest, just as they say, is history.
Right. So as you mentioned, they called you, or you're now deemed, or we'll dub you, the fixer. And it takes a lot of confidence to walk in that space, right? As the fixer, the person that they know is going to be able to handle it and get it done. So as you're thinking about that, and you're thinking about the businesses or the entrepreneurs that you work with, or the different groups that you consult with, how do you help them, or what does the self-reflection look like to be able to be confident in that space, right? Because oftentimes imposter syndrome creeps up, and it can hold you back from doing more and being more. So what does that look like? What did that look like for you?
So for me personally, people don't always believe this, but I was very shy and insecure as a kid. As a matter of fact, graduating college and moving to Houston, which was just a whole new life for me, I made the commitment to myself that I was leaving the old me behind and I was going to step into who I knew I could become. And that was a big process. And it took a lot of courage and it took a lot of tears, I think, sometimes too, because, like you said, that imposter syndrome shows up. You start to go, who do I think I am to be able to be that person when this is who I was for my whole life? So fast forward into my coaching journey, my original plans were to work with women to build that confidence, because I got to a point where I had to stop worrying about what everybody else thought and just do what I knew was right for me, because it's hard to play small when you know you're meant for something more. And so using those processes, I do have a membership that women can join. It's pretty simple. It's fairly inexpensive, but it really does take the little pieces from my journey to help these women build their confidence so that they can show up as their authentic self and not be so worried about everybody else. So changing that over to the work that I do, in my professional life, my career, you had to do that in a school as well, because a lot of times, so when I would come into these schools, I would be the new leader, right? So I didn't cause the problem, I just had to fix the problem. But the staff, many of them were there during the problem. And so you have to get them to a place where they realize it's not about them personally. It's not an attack on you. It's about processes, procedures, and systems that are either in place that are not working or not in place at all. And in most cases, it's usually that they're not in place at all. They're more reactive instead of being proactive. So I know that that's one of the places where I know my coaching experience will be able to come into play here, because as the leader, and I have had experiences, this last school I was there 8 years. We made the change in 1 year, and then Houston was hit very hard with Hurricane Harvey. I'm sure everybody heard about Hurricane Harvey, but my community where my school district was right in the middle. Like, we were the hardest hit community. And so that set everybody back. And I had to go back through that process again. And now I was the leader, knowing that systems that I had in place were no longer working. Things that I was thinking can just keep on moving us forward were not. So I had to use that process again to be able to step back and figure out what went wrong, not just the fact of the natural disaster, but also the fact of kids lost learning opportunities, and they're focused more on their homes, not having a home rather than, or not having electricity, etc. And then we hit the pandemic, and we all know what the pandemic did. It just killed everything. And kids now are still 1 to 2 years behind. And now social emotional issues are starting to come into play, and teacher burnout, and what they call it, the great resignation that the entire, I think, world started to experience. People wanted to stay working at home and not come back to work, and the social anxieties, just so many things come into play that affects exactly what your organization can do. And so again, we have to go back and think about that. But it put me in a place as the leader where I would start to take it a little personal. I would think, oh, I failed my school, I failed my students. And I think that's one of the most important things that any struggling organization needs to know, is that if you realize that you have things going on that need to be fixed, and you're willing to go get the help, you're not the problem. It's when you're not willing to get the help, or when you just keep repeating, the same processes over and over and expecting a different outcome. That's when you have to look personally in. But failure isn't a personal attack on anybody. And I think that's one of the hardest things any human is ever going to experience, because we all take failure personal, right? We see it as we're not good enough, just where that imposter syndrome comes in. And so I think that that's one of the biggest first steps that has to happen when going in and fixing an organization, is that you have to realize none of this is personal. This is about your systems and your processes, not about people. Let's build our people. Let's fix our people. Let's help our people be their best. And let's make those processes their best as well.
So I love something that you said, and two things. So now I'm not only going to say we W the fixer, we also W the builder, because a lot of the things that you're doing is helping to build the people, build the processes, build the systems that they are going to use. But also it's about not belittling, right, the experiences and the expectations of everyone else in the room, but at the same time building to what the cultural expectation will be for that group. So going into these, I'm just interested, I'm intrigued by this conversation. Going into these schools, how do you broach that conversation? Where does that start? Because that can be a challenging environment, let's just say it that way.
It is. So I have to preface all of it with, I learned from some of the greatest people on my journey. And I also learned from some of the most unsuccessful people on my journey as well. And so you learn exactly what works and you learn exactly what not to do. And if you don't think your business is people business, you could be a business of one, but you're still a people business. I'm a solopreneur right now. And if I ever think that it's not about building relationships with people, then I'm never going to succeed. So having said that, what I would do in every single one of these three places is I started with bringing in focus groups. So I would bring in different teams and I would just listen to them, hear what they had to say, what's working in their opinion and what's not working in their opinion. And I would always start with what was not working because I like to do the negative side first so that we end on a positive, right? And so then, and we would write it all down. So I would take all of their information, and these would not necessarily be their leadership teams or the former leaders or maybe the assistant principal or whoever was there. This would be the actual teachers, the actual paraprofessionals, and I even did it with the parents of the schools. So you get a full picture. And then I did that early on. So I would do that either at the end of the previous school year before I actually took on the position or in the summer. And then once I got everybody back together, then we could start digging deep into the current reality and what's happening and what's controllable, what's uncontrollable, because we got to get rid of those uncontrollable factors and having those conversations with every single person involved. But my process, one of the things that I love about it, and you did say climate and culture is huge. If people don't think you believe in them, then they're never going to work for you. So you need to build that. But what's even more important is having a solid communication plan. Because if anybody ever feels like you're not being transparent, if you're keeping things from them, then they're not going to trust you. And to do a process like this, they have to trust you. They have to believe that you have their best interest at your heart. And they have to know that you're willing to stand up for them and get dirty with them. And I think that was one of the most important pieces, but it's starting with that first conversation of, look, this isn't about you, but I just want to know what's happening. What are things that are not working here? I just want to hear from you. And this is a safe place. We're not sharing this information with anybody else. And even when I had to do that as the leader, I had to put on some tough skin because I had to let them know, you're not going to hurt my feelings in here. If there are things that are not working, I need you to be honest with me about it. Because in my mind, I'm thinking things are going fine, but clearly they're not because the results are not showing us that. So I do think that that's one thing about the leader, and not just developing the staff along the way, but developing, I was the leader, so I needed to develop my skills. And that's what my services will provide as well. Sometimes it's just somebody might have gotten into the position or started the business and they really didn't know what they were doing. It's not their fault. They just don't have the skill set yet. So that's where I like that term, the builder. We have to build that as well.
Awesome. So as you think about that, and those of you who are interested or you're on this entrepreneurial journey, you've started your business, You started that business because you were passionate about what it is that you're passionate about. You're good at doing that part. But the business side of things is where you more than likely need the assistance with those systems, those processes as you move forward through in your organization, so that it's now a sustainable business that you can now continue to grow, expand, scale, whatever it is, like 10x, right? Whatever you want to do within your business. So as you're thinking through and sharing with us, Cheri, can you give us one example of a challenge or several challenges that new business owners should be thinking about as they're going through this process that may need your service, right? Someone that would fit within alignment with what it is that you do. And what would that look like? What challenges do you see?
So I think one of the things that they may be experiencing is just thinking, I need to be very managerial in my business. I'm the person in charge. It needs to be one way. I'm about monitoring. I'm about checking off the boxes. And I do believe 100% when you are leading people, you need to have those soft skills. You need to be able to have some empathy for people, you give them some grace. You have to be able to know how to build relationships with people, and not to the fact where, I mean, some of my staff, I was at this last school for 8 years. Some of my staff knew me pretty well because they had been with me the whole time, but I'm not walking down the hall saying, oh, I went on a date last night, you know, stuff like that. It's about, they know I'm a mom and I take that very serious, that my daughter's a teacher. So I believe in teachers. They know that I strive for having a work-life balance, those types of things. So I think one of the biggest challenges that someone might be experiencing is that they're thinking too much with the managerial hat and not necessarily with the leadership hat. I think another challenge can be, like you said, we get into this for the passion. We have a purpose, right? We believe we can make an impact on the world. And once something goes sideways, and I've been there, I mean, truly, I've been doing this a year and about 2 months now. It was a side business for a year and now I'm into it full time. And so many things have gone sideways. So many things have gone wrong and we want to give up. And, or we want to get, how do I want to say, tighter on things, the hustle mindset maybe. And so I think we have to remember our purpose and our passion when it comes to every decision we're making, because that's important. But we also then have to remember, if you don't have the skill set on the business side, on the selling side, on the marketing side, you got to build that. You got to grow. You got to take time to learn, or you won't. They won't come together and you won't move forward. I think those are the biggest things. I mean, I believe that if you have the motivation to learn and grow and listen and take care of people, I think anybody in this world can be successful. I truly believe that.
Awesome. And I feel that. I feel that one of the things too that I wanted to go back to that you touched upon was that work-life balance. And as people are working through that, oftentimes we've seen many people, they either get into that job, they work all of these hours on that job, or they get to the point where they say, you know what, it's all about me now. I'm on this side of the scale. How do we balance both of those ends? How do you balance that? You're a mom, you're an educator, you're business consulting, coaching, and then the other hats that you wear, right? In addition to those. So do you have a strategy? How do you work that work-life balance and make that work for you?
So I will start with saying I am a recovered workaholic, okay? Because we all get there, just like you said, you get to that point where you're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this success. I got to keep it brewing, right? And I am going to apologize. My dog just walked in the room and he thinks it's lunchtime, but he'll be fine, okay? But having said all that, I think one of the things that you have to do, and I do, I just released a podcast on this. I always say your day runs you, or you run your day. You choose, right? So I think scheduling is super important, being organized and scheduling. So for example, when my daughter was in high school, was a fairly new principal. I'd become a principal when she was just finishing middle school. And she was in all of the things, right? And I only have one child, so I was pretty lucky that I only had to worry about one, but she was in everything. And my ex-husband wasn't always involved with everything. And so it was on me. So it really took mindfulness to sit down and say, okay, look, I'm going to be getting up in the morning and doing my workout at this time. And then I'm going to get her to school. And then I'm going to get myself to school. And then when school is over, if I have meetings, this is the person that's going to make sure to meet her, to make sure she's okay and in the house and settled. You use your resources and you ask for help when you need it. I think the other thing is you make the things that are priorities. So you can find a bazillion reasons not to go work out, right? Or not to spend time with your family, or to stay extra at the school or at your office or working on your business. All of those reasons are there, but it's about your priorities. If you want those to be the priorities, perfect, keep moving in that direction. But if you want that balance, then you just have to say, okay, I'm going to cut it off at this time of the day. The work will be there tomorrow. And if you are organized and you have the right systems and processes in place, you'll be able to do that. I truly believe that. But it's about doing that front work so that you can, benefit in the end. And that's, where you put your priority.
Yes, I love that. So it's all about being intentional in all of those acts. Intentional with that working out, because you spoke to me in that moment. I was like, ooh, stepped on my toes.
I know, and I hate to do that. Sometimes I think, oh, people are going to think she's preaching, but it works, y'all. It works if you just stop and you step back. I was just coaching a client recently, and we were talking about scheduling her day. And she has 2 children, and her husband owns a business as well. And she said, I just can't. I can't find the time. She wanted me to actually write her book. And I said, no, I don't want to be your ghostwriter. I'll coach you on your book, but let's get you writing. She goes, I can't. I don't have the time. And I said, let's find 3 hours in your week. 3 hours. And it was there. It was clear. Right. We looked at her calendar and it was there, but that wasn't her priority.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome. I love that. There's wisdom definitely in each one of the nuggets that you share. Guys, I hope you were taking notes. I hope you were writing things down. And if you didn't write it down, that's okay. You can go back and listen again, like, subscribe, share, because we're having those courageous conversations that are going to help you to be able to do those things you need to do. That's make your money, keep your money, and grow your money inside of your business. Expand, scale, do whatever it is that you are choosing to do as you continue to grow, develop, and always continue to grow, develop, right? You're talking to educators here. So we are all about continuous learning as we move through this process. Yeah, making progress through the process. So with that said, is there anything, Cheri, that you want to share with our audience that we haven't discussed today?
Well, I'll just say this. I think I have been very, very blessed in my life, and it's because of the hard work and the determination that I have had. It's also about the people that I've surrounded myself with. I've always looked for, like I said earlier, people that you can learn from, what to do and what not to do. And I think that that's super important. I do believe in people. I am a people person. And I believe that there are no failures out there. They're just opportunities to grow. And that's how I would want someone to treat me. That's how I would want someone to treat my daughter. And that's how I always approach life. So.
Awesome. Love that. And as she shared, it's something we share here at Financial Confidence. Guys, look at those 5 people who are closest to you. and it will tell you a lot about what you need to do. Do you need to slide some people over and add some new ones to your repertoire, or are you in a good place? Well, guys, we want to thank you so much for sharing. And Cheri, before we go, I wanted you to share, where can people find you, your social media, your website? Share with our audience, please.
Well, I made it very, very simple. I am CheriDixonConsulting.com. You can find me on my website, and my social media is all of that as well. I do have supports for educators, and you can find that on my website. So you don't have to go to a separate site, but I also have social media platforms for those programs. And I partner with my daughter, and we are Teachers That Sparkle. And that's pretty easy to remember because I'm kind of a princess and I like to sparkle. But yes, definitely reach out. And, I love connecting with people and providing as much to the world as I can. That's my goal in life, is to have an impact on the world. And there are plenty of ways where you can connect with me, send me a message, get on my calendar. I always give a free discovery call to anybody that comes into my world.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sparkling with us today. All right, guys. Well, if this show has been invaluable to you, make sure you head over to wytv7.org and leave a donation so we can continue to do what we are called to do. That's to educate, empower, and inspire. That's at wytv7.org. I'm Lynn Demmons. That's Demmons, No Demons here. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week at the same time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because sharing is caring. Until then, guys, you stay safe.